Okay. Good morning, everybody. If you're in Australia or around this part of the world, good evening or afternoon. If you're over on the other side, Karen here from Off The Track Thoroughbreds Success and Karen Gracie Equine Success for our weekly Q&A in the Facebook group and on YouTube. So I'll just wait for some people to come on and I will have a sip of my coffee. If you've got a question, if you pop on and you have a question you'd like to ask me, pop it in the chat and I will do my best to answer it for you. Let me just check my settings here. Okay. I think all the settings are good. Cool. Okie dokie. So I'll just wait a minute or so for some people to pop on and then we will go forward because I've got a question to answer and I might answer another one actually that was a Facebook group post. Let me just have a look here. So let me just look at my questions. And fiddling around here on the text side. Where are we? Okie dokie. Where's these questions? Where are these questions? I'll just go into the Facebook group. Here we go. Okie dokie. So I had a question from Amber, and Amber once she said asked to be able to talk about planning of a training session. So I then asked her, what particular, is it just a whole training session for retraining your off the track thoroughbred from when you first get them off the track all the way through to where you want them to be? So the whole outline of the training session, or an individual single every time you go out and train? And it was a individual session, but we might chat about both. Idea of how to build an individual training session. Okay, so we will talk about that. Just waiting for some more people to pop on. My dogs are snoring around here. Okay. So just waiting for some more people to pop on, and then I'll answer Amber's question. If you're popping on, say hello. If you've got a question you'd like to ask me, pop it in the chat, and I will do my best to answer it for you. And if you can hear my dog snoring in the background, they've all just had breakfast and they're all sleeping around me here. So I'll just go back again and read out Amber's question. So Amber wanted me to talk about planning of a training session. And so I asked Amber if it was an individual training session, like each day if you go out and do a session with your horse, or the whole outline. So basically Amber said how to build an individual training session, but we might talk about both. So with an individual training session, so every time you get, so when you go, okay, well, I'm riding today, I'm going out and doing my training session, you want to have an idea of what you're going to be working on. So if you follow my training and my teachings, you know that I retrain off the track thoroughbreds and I retrain them using Equitation Science Principles. So we have a framework. If you follow my YouTube channel, you see some videos of me working with some horses. But you start off retraining the basic responses in hand first, and then under saddle when you've consolidated them in hand. Now, you need to, and if you're in my paid program, we've got a lot more in-depth information on that. And Amber, you're in my paid program, so I'll direct you to some areas there, and we're actually going to be working through all the practical exercises coming up within the next week or so. So our individual training sessions, first of all, we want to know where our horse is at. And this is, first of all, you need to know where your horse is at in the education phase so that you know what you're working on. So just say, for instance, Amber, you're still in hand work and you're training stop and go. Okay, so your last session, so you need to know, okay, I'm at this phase of training. We've got a shaping scale, so with Equitation Science, like a training scale. So you'll know where you're at, Amber, on the training scale. So we start off at basic attempt. Just say you're just starting off just with your Off The Track Thoroughbred. And you've only done 3 sessions before. So we know that we're working on our stop and go, and you finding that she's still at obedience level. So she's stopping nice and lightly. So then you know that you're going into that session and you're working on stop and go in obedience level. So you need to plan your individual training session. You need to have an idea of where you are at and what you're working on. Now, you want to keep your training sessions short. Depending on where you're at, if you're particularly with Off The Track Thoroughbreds and they're learning something new, I never do more than 20 minutes. Okay, so and even under saddle, the horse, if they're learning something new, the horse can only absorb so much information. Remember, either humans and horses, when we're learning something new, our brain is building new neural pathways and our brain can get fatigued. Horses, if they're learning something new, if you keep drilling it into them and you're doing like an hour session, they're going to get brain fatigued and they're not going to learn. So you want to, Bailey, one of my dogs is chasing my other dogs out. Come here, stop being mean. So you want to keep your sessions short with frequent breaks in between whatever you're teaching. So Amber, you will know this because you're in our paid program. So our individual training session, one, we need to know what we're working on. So, for example, we are working on our stop and go in hand under head collar. We know where we're at. So you need to know, okay, last time I did my session, she was nice and light to the responses, but she was crooked. Okay, so we know that she's responding nice and lightly. So you're working on your stop and go. We have a framework that you do. So with under saddle or in hand, particularly in hand, if we're teaching something new, you do 3 sets. So a bit like you're at the gym and you're doing weights. So we do 3 sets of about 5 to 7 repetitions. So our individual training session, you go in. Okay, you'll do 1 set, so you're training stop and go, and our aim is to have her to respond to a nice light lead rein response, okay, coming forward immediately. And you might do immediately one after the other, so no more than 4 seconds break in between a repetition. Ask her to step forward, release, ask her to step forward, release, ask her to step forward 5 or 6 strides, release, ask her to step forward 5 or 6 strides, release. So you'll do 5 to 7 of those, aiming for her to respond to a lighter aid as you progress through the repetitions. You don't ever want to be drilling your horse. So you don't want to be drilling them and getting them their arousal levels to a heightened state where they're getting flustered, they're getting anxious. So you've done your 5 to 7 repetitions of standing in front, asking to go forward and release. And you got a couple of improvements. You started responding lighter to the last couple. Okay, so you'll stop there. And what you do, you'll find these on my YouTube channel, working with Tommy and working with, I've got some dragon videos coming up as well. But you have a 1.5 to 2 minute break in between that session. Okay, so you're having because this allows the horse to, you're not overloading the brain. Remember, they're building new neural pathways. It gives them a break, a bit like your weight training. You have a break in between. Okay, you let your muscles recover. You let the horse's brain settle, and you can just practice in this 1.5, 2-minute break, practice your park. Okay, so you're standing still, and you can mutual groom. So, well, you're not mutually grooming the horse, but, giving scratches on the wither, just allowing them to relax. You might want to practice a little head down. So you don't want to be, doing anything to increase more stimuli. So basically, this is a little rest. We've had our 1.5, 2-minute break. Then you'll go on to your second repetition. So we're working on our stop and go. In this training session, you've chosen what you're working on. You'll do your 5 to 7 repetitions. If for some reason she is really learning to respond to the light lead rein aid and she's lovely and coming forward, you might only do 2 or 3 repetitions because she's already shown improved response. But just say she's still a little bit heavy, 5 to 7 repetitions of the exercise you're practicing on. For this instance, in our example, asking our horse to come forward off light lead rein response nice and lightly. You'll walk forward about 6 steps, stop, walk forward 6 steps, stop, walk forward 6 steps, stop, aiming to get this nice fluid forward back motion with your horse. And just say by the 3rd repetitions, she's starting to respond nice and lightly. Give another 2. If you've got sort of 2 or 3 improvement repetitions, stop there. Okay, that's a great set. Okay, have another break of 1.5, 2 minutes in between. Once again, standing there, you can give her a scratch on the wither. Practice a bit of head down, or just stand there and it's a nice little break, 1.5, 2 minutes break, allowing the brain to start to process the information that they've learned. And when your 1.5, 2 minutes has, once that's succeeded, you go on to your 3rd repetition and you're doing the same thing. Okay, so 6 or 7 repetitions. If you've got a great improvement, okay, you might only do 3 or 4 repetitions. And then that's basically the end of your training session. So you're doing 3 sets of about 5 to 7 repetitions of the exercise that you're working on. Now, we don't want to be, if in our session, if horses are horses, and you might go in and they might be in a highly aroused mood, they might be shying for some reason or whatever. So we have to be adaptable. If things are just going pear-shaped in the session, you just do the best you can. If you're not getting any good repetitions, I think it was either Amber or might have been you, Amber, or someone else in the group in our program that was just their horse was off their tree. So you just you work with what you've got. If you can at least get, so just say we're having a pear-shaped day and you go in and everything's going pear-shaped. Don't drill your horse. Okay, so instead of sort of drilling and I've got to get this, aim to, you've taken a step back in your training for whatever reason your horse is shying or spooky or not as calm as they normally are. You just work with what you've got on that day and maybe just getting 1 or 2 repetitions of at least an improved response with your horse. That's the training session. So it's better to keep your training session short than trying. I know our human tendency is, I'll just try one more time. I just want to get that one more time. It's not going to do any benefit. There's always another day, and you want to avoid as much as possible to increase the flight response and to create any anxiety in your horse. If the opposite, okay, you've gone in and you planned your training session and you've planned to work on stop and go, and your horse is really good. They're responding to the stop and go. Just say the first set, they're nice and light. The second set, they're really lovely and light. And you think, well, I'm really going well here. And you want to start to train something else. You might think, okay, in this session, I might bring in training, move up to my turn. So this is an example I'm having with my dragon. So my Off the Track Thoroughbred dragon, that's come into work. We've been training stop and go. Oh, quite a few sessions, lots of videos to upload both on YouTube and in our program with Dragon. And I'm now thinking, maybe this session when I go out, I might start to incorporate training the turns. If for some reason he's just deteriorated in his stop and go responses, then I will not go with that. which is last session, I was planning on bringing in training turns, but I just felt like he was still a bit dull to the age, so I didn't. But your main framework of your individual session is 3 sets of 5 to 7 repetitions. And you really want to, I mean, when you're first starting to train a response, just say you're new off the track thoroughbred and you've only worked with them a few times, 10 minutes of in-hand work is plenty, and you start to build up. Once you've really consolidated the responses, okay, and just say you're very consolidated in-hand work, and an example, you're under saddle work. So I always still keep my sessions. I don't like to do more than 30 minutes all up. Just say you've got a horse, you consolidated all your groundwork. They're good. We've done all our groundwork in hand, under saddle. Our stop and go is really good. I still keep my sessions shorter, not like the old days when you were just told to just drill your horse around in circles for like an hour, and none of that stuff. Okay, so we want to think of keeping our sessions shorter more than longer. So I'm going to give you an example with me. I will just say my Ty, for instance, when I had him in for retraining when he was right up, I really don't like to work them more than 30 minutes all up. And that's including our walk, going out, trot, cantering, maybe max walking down there, max 45 minutes. And this is a horse that's fit, working, max 45 minutes. That's getting in the saddle, walking down there, having a really nice relaxed walk. And this is a conditioned horse that's retrained, okay, ready to go out, to your first day of riding club or something, or ready to go back home to their owners if it's a horse that's been in for retraining. But I just do a nice relaxed warm up. Okay, I'll do my trot. I might go in and work some more fitness, conditioning, trot. So once we've got them nice and light to the responses, then we're at the stage where we start to need to get them to be developing. Now they know the responses and we've got the ability to be able to shape their body. We need to put some work into them where we're building up top line. We want to get them strong. So some physical strength work. So we have to do some of that work. But once again, I do it in breaks. So I might go in and hop up into the trot, and I want him forward and over the back and in self-carriage, and you can feel your horse is working hard. Okay, so once again, it's a bit like fitness gym. I used to be a fitness instructor. I used to work in gyms, so I know what it's like. You're building that muscle, particularly with top line and muscle conditioning and that. I've seen a lot of posts on Facebook where, I work my horse for an hour because I want to build top line. If you're working in an aerobic capacity, okay, if the longer you're working around and round and round, it's not building muscle, it's increasing fitness. Okay, it's building aerobic capacity. You want to do that if you're in cross country, if you're doing endurance or cross country eventing, and you're needing that fitness and condition on your horse, you need to do the longer aerobic sessions. But to build our top line with our horse and everything, it's more about muscle development, short sessions. So asking your horse to work in self-carriage, just say for, 5 or 10 minutes in the trot, stop, break, long rein, relax and let them have a nice walk around. Might do a second session, up, trot, and you feel your horse working in self-carriage, 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes max, depending on, if they're really, you want to ask your horse to be working. You feel like they're working, but you want to nurture them. You never want to be forcing your horse, but asking them. It's sort of hard to explain, but you get that feeling where you can feel your horse working underneath you. And you have to, I always put it back to me, okay, because I worked in the fitness industry, and I've ridden track work. I rode track work for 17 years, so I know getting fit. But as a fitness person and running, 20 Ks and doing all of that, I know what it's like to be physically exhausted and everything. And I think, well, this is how my horse is feeling. Horses can't say to themselves, I've only got another 5 minutes. If we're training, we can say, I've only got another 5 minutes and I'll just keep going. But our horse has no idea. So we have to be aware that, we want to make them just short sessions, like little intervals of them working in self-carriage, and then give them a break and a scratch and rewarding them for them. So we're building up their muscle and their top line, but drilling your horse, I mean, it just makes me sad when I see, people going around, and it's just because they don't know anything else. I want to build my horse's top line, so I'll just keep going around for 60 minutes. If anything, that's not going to build your horse's top line. That's only going to make your horse fitter. Okay. And if you're not working in the correct posture and the horse is not working biochemically correct, it's building the wrong muscles. So this is why training the basic responses is really important. Our whole foundation training of in hand and then under saddle is giving us the ability to be able to control our horse with the lightest responses, to be able to ask them and to show them how to use their body correctly, because the only way we're going to be able to build a nice top line is to be able to control our horse's movement. A horse naturally has more weight on their forelegs, on their shoulders. That's how they move around in nature, and particularly with off the track thoroughbreds, they're galloping in a gallop. Okay, they have more weight on their shoulders, so it's progressive. It's like weight doing weights conditioning. We're gradually asking them to shift weight off their shoulders and put more weight on their hind legs, and that's hard work. But to be able to do that, we need to have really consolidated our basic responses, so we can give the aids and the cues to our horse to be able to slow down and engage their hind legs and to go forward. And this is where a lot of people miss this really important foundation part of retraining, is to be able to do what you want to do. And I know what it's like I'm retraining my off the track thoroughbred Dragon. He's been retrained in the past, and because I'm not riding track work anymore, I'm a retired track work rider. And normally, I've got a lot of horses. I have 19 horses, but most of them haven't been in work for various reasons. And so I normally ride 10 to 15 horses a morning. Track work, I'm riding, and so I love riding. And since I haven't been able to ride track work, I'm depending on my own horses to ride. And due to injuries and finances, having horses in work is very expensive, and not having my track work as an income source is very hard. So to be able to have my horses in work, I need income. But I just want to ride. So Dragon, and I will not force them. I won't. I did try with Dragon. I tried to, because I've retrained him. He's 15. I've done cross country, taken him to shows and everything. But when I hopped on him, he showed a deficit in his basic responses. He wouldn't stand still at the mounting block. I could see he was agitated. He even tried to have a little hump on me, which is, because he's been out of work for 3 years. So no, I'm going right back and I'm retraining the basic responses with him, and I'm filming it. So I've filmed it for you guys. I think I've got my 13th, 14th session, and I'm still at stop and go. So that's how long I've spent on a retrained off the track thoroughbred. I've retrained him. I've competed with him and everything, and I'm still going back. So I'm busting to ride. I just want to get in the saddle and get out there and ride. But I have to be patient. And I know that as I consolidate my basic responses, when I'm ready, which I'm not far off getting in the saddle, and I'm looking so forward to it. It's just, I've done the right thing for him, because I've already noticed how more relaxed and calm and happy he is, just with me going back and doing right back to having him nice and responsive to his stop and go. As I said, I haven't even got to turn yet. But I don't know where I was going with that train of thought. But looking at the session building. So one, you have your whole outline. So we need to understand, and this is why the Equitation Science framework, the framework that I have, is really important. It's very valuable because it's giving you a complete framework to follow. You know where to go. You know what you need to work on today. You know where you're heading to, and you know your whole outline of your training program. And then you break it down into individual training programs of, okay, this is where I'm at. And we've got the training scale, basic, attempt, obedience. So you're working up a bit like the dressage training scale, different, but the similar concept. So you know where you're at on the older version of the traditional dressage training scale. And then within the training session, we train 3 sets of about 5 to 7 repetitions. And then once we've really consolidated in that, we can start to change when we're really good, when we've done our in-hand work and we've consolidated our under saddle work, our horses going forward. We're ready to start to do the more conditioning, aerobic, and also building the top line work. Well, then we start to change our training more to. I still sort of do sets and have a break, as I explained, in the middle, and do sets, and I never like to do any more than 30 minutes. And that's a horse that's consolidated in all their basic foundation training, and working on more, getting them, physical strengthening, and getting up to on the sail, so more of your straightness and your contact and all of that. So I hope that explains that, Amber. How to build an individual training session. And there's more. So I know, Amber, you're one of my paid students. So there's a heap in the Off the Track Thoroughbred Success Academy, where you've got all the training framework and everything in there. That's up in the lesson, so we can have a chat and I can show you where that is, because you've got that to follow through. We'll get some up on YouTube as well, and in the Facebook group. What can I do with that one? Yeah, I'll get some up there, but that's basically how I plan a training session. So if you have any questions, let me know, pop them in the chat. If that makes sense, great. If you still need something to be able to clarify, ask me and I'll do my best to answer it. And now, if I've covered that topic, I just wanted to talk about another topic. There was a question in the Facebook group. I'm just going to have a sip of my coffee here. And I'm going to get back to this question. I was going to do my live and then get back to a question. But it's good to answer it, because our Facebook group and the YouTube channel is for everyone to learn. So that's why I like people to pop up any questions, any problems they have, pop it up in a post and I'll answer it. And then when people see the problems, they go, oh, yeah, I have that problem as well. And, you can go back and see how to fix these, address these issues. So Jessica's popped up a post, any tips on how to help a horse that has a stiff neck only on one side? So I answered that, first of all, needing to know in what scenario is the stiff neck. Is it under saddle? Is it in hand? So I'll just go through and read what there's been another comment, but so I've just basically said it depends on what is causing the stiff neck and the symptoms. In what situation is your horse giving you a symptom of a stiff neck on one side? Is it riding on the ground? If it's riding, is it when you're circling through turns, etc.? So I've just asked for some more detail. So Jessica's replied, not sure where the stiffness could come from. She did get a bad trailer accident at 3 years old. And she's really made a great comeback at almost 6, but she's a little bit stiff when you ask her to do any bending on the ground or under saddle. The trainer said she shouldn't be one-reined ever on that side because she might lose her balance and she's a bit too stiff. It's almost like she's got a bad whiplash in her accident and now she can't turn her head all the way. So I'm going to answer this one because, first of all, you don't want to be turning your head all the way. And this is a thing that is, once again, going back to correct retraining biomechanically. Now, equitation science is it's principles of training. So a lot of what is taught in equitation science is sort of similar, and I also too love to follow the classical dressage type trainers. Okay, so we want to look at the horse's body. And we don't, so a lot of training, you'll see this neck bending, and I think this might be happening here with you, Jessica. Not sure. It'd be great to see a video. Love seeing videos, but these carrot stretches and neck stretches, a lot of the more Western type of natural horsemanshipy things, you see quite a lot. They want the horse's neck to bend and their nose to touch your shoe or whatever. I don't do that. I don't like it. There's no reason for it. So first of all, we've got to be asking, what are we trying to achieve with what we're doing? There's always a reason. We need to be going, okay, well, why do we want to do neck? Why do you want this really bendy neck? Because when you're riding, you don't want your horse to be having its neck around near your toe. So why are you doing it? A horse has a very flexible, horses have a very flexible neck, as generally you'll see, they'll turn around and they'll bite there. That, you know, got to fly, or they're amazing, actually. They're really bendy in their neck. She may have some, I've got some, well, Dragon, for instance, he's very stiff in his neck. Okay, he always has been, and he's been a good learning curve for me, because when I first retrained him, I used to ride him track work, God bless him. I rode a lot of my horses track work, and he used to hang really badly in track work, and he did 2 tendons. And Dragon's a good horse to work with because he's a quiet horse, but he's got this very stiff neck. When I first I didn't retrain as I did now. I retrained him back in 2014, but I learned a lot more. And when I did retrain Dragon, I struggled. I started getting frustrated. I wanted that. Why isn't he going in a frame type of thing? And, you know, he's got a short neck, and he's always been fairly hard and rock hard in it. He's a bit overdeveloped up here behind the ears. And so he's got, you know, they can be stiff in their neck because off the track, well, just even when they're out in the paddock, they don't stand in the best posture. And that's part of retraining, is teaching them to be able to carry themselves in self-carriage and a more healthy posture. A bit like us, if we generally walk around and most of us aren't in a very good position. If you start struggling and having problems with your position in riding is really good. I struggled big time with my position from track work injuries. And then when I got back on the saddle, I was compensating. I got in pain, and I was terrible. So because of my big struggles with my riding position, and also bad coaching, you know, the typical older school, shoulders back, and my shoulders were crooked and everything, because of compensation and tight muscles, I really struggled big time in that. I thought I had to give up riding. I was in so much pain, but I discovered the Alexander technique. That's another topic for another live, but it was amazing and completely transformed my riding. And part of what I'm passionate in is rider mechanics and position. So one day I'll do a course on that. But yeah, so you don't, so where was I going with the riding position one? Don't know. Anyway, we'll go back to the neck. Oh yeah, so stiffness and tightness and everything. So if you're in yoga, even now, you know, if you're wanting to do a yoga pose, you don't want to be forcing that with yoga. So think of riding and shaping your horse as a bit like yoga. You need to allow the muscles to relax, and classical dressage is like that. So I don't like, and I don't do this neck bending. Some trainers, you'll see them bringing the horse around the neck. I don't even do carrot stretches. They can sort of be helpful, but you only want them to be helpful if you've been recommended to do them by a qualified equine physiotherapist or something, and you're working on something particular. Other than that, there's no reason to do carrot stretches unless there's particular muscles or an injury or something that you're targeting and you're wanting to lengthen. In your training, this neck bending doesn't come into it. And in fact, it's actually detrimental, because when you're asking your horse to stop and go in hand, if they're bending in their neck, and this happens a lot with off the track thoroughbreds, well, thoroughbred racehorses in racing, to avoid the bit pressure, okay, instead of stopping, they'll suck their neck back. Or they'll lean into it, so they're not giving the response. So you don't want your horse, when you're using your reins, to ask them to stop. You don't want them, instead of stopping, to be able to bring in their neck back. And doing all this neck stuff is teaching that. It's also, there's a great article, I saw a great article by a equine physiotherapist on the detrimental effects of neck bending, and not only that, but this whole shoulder, this hindquarters moving over. So when you're neck bending, you're disuniting the horse's body. So from a classical dressage point of view, from a body, I love the Alexander technique, and Alexander technique can be used with horses, but you see the body as a whole. So with correct retraining, we want the horse, like if you want your horse working in self-carriage, over the back, in the contact and all of that, they need to be one unit. The energy needs to come up from the hind leg, over the back, into a lovely soft contact. You don't want your horse's head over around near your foot. Okay, so bending. So I'll just go back to Jessica's question. She's stiff on one side. Well, it's probably because she could have some arthritis in some vertebrae. She could have, if she's an off-the-track thoroughbred, she's had a trailer accident. She's more than likely got scar tissue. So Dragon had torn muscles and scar tissue in his neck, and he still has. I would never ask Dragon to move his head all the way over. And watching Dragon, following, because I'm filming all his retraining, following him is going to be really great for you guys, because I struggled with this myself, his stiffness in his neck, back when I retrained him in 2014. I actually started getting frustrated, took a step back and put him out for 6 months, and came back with a completely different approach. And I had him beautiful, had him going beautiful. I actually had him up for sale, and he's taught beginners on him and everything. So Dragon was a really good learning curve, but he's got a very stiff neck. And so this time round, with even more insight and more experience that I have, and I've got a video up of him going through his body and showing you how stiff in his neck. So Jessica, it might be good for you to watch that video of Dragon, because you'll be able to see how I address his stiffness in his neck. And not once do I do any carrot stretches or anything like that. So we'll be able to watch his progress. So you want them, so when with stiff necks and that, first of all, with bending, so we don't need to have neck flexing is not part of retraining. We don't want to be riding around, in a show jumping ring with our horse's neck bent this way. And on the bit, but this is a false frame. So having all these neck bending stuff is a false collection. It's not something we really want to be teaching our horse. She's more than likely very stiff. So if you think that, if you're asking her, you don't say what side she's stiff on, but just say she's stiff on turning around to the left. That means that most likely she may have her offside, something along her offside neck is tight. Okay, she may have, if she's had a trailer accident, she may have torn muscles. It's got scar tissue there, and so she literally can't bend that way. So this is why it's good to get an equine osteopath or a massage therapist in, because she may have some scar tissue there that you need to work on. So imagine having scar tissue there and you're trying to do carrot stretches with a horse, and the poor horse can't physically bend their neck around. That you could do 150 carrot stretches and it's not going to soften that muscle or that scar tissue. What's going to happen is, well, Dragon's got some scar tissue as massage and gradually breaking up that bits of scar tissue, and little bit by little bit, like yoga, getting that little bit of extra bend. So she's probably stiff on one side. So doing carrot stretches is not going to unstiffen her neck. What's going to unstiffen her neck is, depending, you want to eliminate any like severe arthritis or anything like that. Classical dressage approach and the equitation science is really good, even for horses that do have injuries, that do have, and off the track thoroughbreds quite often have a lot of injuries, because it's teaching them to use their body in a healthy way in self-carriage. And so that even if you've got injuries, I've got injuries, but because I have been taught how to carry my posture in a healthy way, how to ride biochemically correct, my injuries I don't feel in riding. If I do, I know that, so don't worry if your horse has injuries, but you need to be able to, unless it's causing them lameness, but you need to be able to address what's happening. And get good vet assessment and make sure there's no severe arthritis or something there. So let's go back to, she gets, the trainer said she shouldn't be one-reined ever on that side because she might lose her balance and she's a bit too stiff. She gets it. It's almost like she's got in her accent now she can't turn her head all the way. You don't want her to turn her head all. It's interesting to see what she does in the paddock. Can she turn around and get a fly off or something like that? But bending. So let me just see. I think you said so bending. So what is bending? Bending's not bending the neck. Bending is a correct bend. So flexion. So what I do when you're teaching horses a bend. So just say you're wanting your horse to bend correctly. That's the tail from the spine all the way to the tail and a nice curved line all the way to the pole. So you see if you're bending, that's not bending, that's flexion. That's just neck bending. This neck is not correct bending when it comes to working. It's just bending the neck, and there's no benefit from bending the neck unless it's been particularly exercise, particularly given for treatment. But so bending is teaching the horse correct turn. So if she's losing a balance, she's going to lose a balance if you're bringing her neck out of alignment. So if you're bending her neck, a bit like the hindquarter thing, you're pushing the horse off their center of balance. Instead of asking this neck bend, you teach little flexions. So bending is a whole body experience. Okay. It's got nothing to do with neck bending. What it has to do is incorporating flexion. So asking her to flex from the pole. And this is an exercise where you just get the most subtle give from the pole. And it's minute. You can hardly see the movement, but you feel a release, okay, from the pole and the head and the neck. This is part of in-hand classical dressage training and also equitation science training as well. And then you're teaching the horse to be able to release the muscles there. And then if she has got scar tissue, just say she's hard to bend to the left. Okay. She's going to be unbalanced if you keep bending her neck all the way. To teach her balance has got nothing to do with the neck. It's got to do with her turn. And this is teaching her to step forward and out, turning from the shoulder when you ask for a left-hand turn or bend, turning from the shoulder if you're asking for right-hand turn and bend. She's going to be out of balance if you're asking her to turn to the left with neck bend and she's pivoting off her left foreleg. Instead of stepping forward and out with her left foreleg, she's just leaning in. Then she's going to be out of balance, and that's not a correct turn and that's not correct bend. So I think what's happening is you're focusing on neck bend, and you're not asking for the bend correctly. And I'm not sure what your trainer is trying to achieve, but it sounds like it's probably more of the she's got an approach where some trainers do all this neck bending. They think it's going to soften the horse in front. Off the track thoroughbreds get very heavy in front. They can get leany into the bit, but the neck bending is not the solution for that, because it's basically disuniting their body and separating the back half from the front half. To get your horse soft in the bit is teaching them to soften their jaw, to soften their pole. I've got hiccups. Always get hiccups in my lives. To soften their jaw, to soften their pole with subtle movements and give, and to teach them self-carriage. So that's how you get that softness and that bend and flexion, is not by doing these excessive bending movements. It's by retraining the basic responses, okay, which I go through in the Facebook group and on YouTube. I'll get some more videos up. It's I'm still learning all this tech stuff, guys, so it takes me ages to get videos up. So I'm so sorry. I will get faster, but lots of great videos coming up. But yeah, so your bend and your flexion and your balance has got nothing to do with the neck bend. It's to do with your basic responses and teaching turn. Her balance is going to come from her shoulders and stepping out and forward with her left and right. I'm going straight into this with dragon. This is my next step, turning the turns. And then once you've taught the turns correctly, you then start to shape your horse's body once they're responding to stop and go and turn. And if they're stiff in their neck, okay, and they're like this, a bit like a giraffe, first of all, you teach head down. So Jessica, the first thing I would do was with your horse is it a mare? Yeah, a mare. Teach her head down. That's going to teach some softness. It's going to teach her to give in her muscles, not only give to pressure, but give her muscles, you'll start to see that sometimes off the track thoroughbreds, they don't think that they can let go and give. They literally are so set in their body that it's like chipping away at stone, and they don't know how to let go. And forcing them to let go is not going to work. If anything, it tightens the muscles up more, and it tightens their mind up more. We want to teach them to give to pressure, and so teach head down. The first exercise I would recommend if you've got a horse that's stiff in their neck is teach head down vertical. Then when you've taught head down and you've taught the turns, then you can ask for teach flexion, not flexion with this big neck bend. It's a little flexion with the pole. Okay, a little bit of give in the pole, little bit of give in the jaw, release, and then you start to ask for a little bit more bend in the neck. You don't want your horse past the horse. If the horse's head's past their shoulders and you losing that beautiful curve, you are putting the horse off balance. The neck bending, unless it's used in a particularly physiotherapist recommendation way, is not correct training. You don't want to be riding your horse with this big neck bending. It's more, so that's not the way to soften the horse's neck. The way to soften the horse's neck is to retrain the basic responses. So teach your horse to be in self-carriage, responding to light responses, and then teaching, I teach head down as one of the first ones. So teaching head down. I've got a YouTube video on that. If you want me to link it, let me know. And then when you've taught head down, then you can teach some give. So just say they're really, so off the track thoroughbreds will often be very set around their pole and they're holding their skull into their neck like that. So you've already taught head down. That's starting to teach them to relax in itself. Then once they're teaching, then you just go this little give in the pole. Where's my pole? Here. Little give and release. And then they'll get really locked in their jaw. And then if you've got a bit in, you want to teach them, then you just a little bit of subtle pressure with the bit, just one little bit of a corner. As soon as you feel some relaxation in the jaw, you release straight away. So you can see it's not forcing, but it's just looking for signs of release and relaxation, rewarding that and building on that. But from my training, I don't do any neck bending unless it's carrot stretches that are recommended from my osteopath or something. So that's the second question I've answered. I might actually link this up in the post for Jessica instead of answering it. I've just got all this hay in my breeches, my phone pocket. I was unloading hay yesterday. So that is so they're questions that I've answered. So I hope this is helpful for both you guys, and I might leave it there for this Q&A unless there's anyone that wants to pop up another question. There will be a replay of this. Is there a replay? I know there's a replay that's popped up. So I will, if I'll put a notification up on Facebook. And look, I might leave it there. Thank you for joining me. And every week I have a weekly Q&A on YouTube and in the Facebook group. It's Thursdays at 8 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. If you're interested in finding out more about my paid programs, I have an Off the Track Thoroughbred Success Academy. I have an online course, the Kickstart Roadmap, that you get free when you join the academy. I'm also doing a training series. So I do a weekly Zoom coaching in there, and live Q&A and coaching, and another online course. So we're actually now going into the practical applications of retraining off the track thoroughbreds, so teaching you from right at the start all the way to the end on how to retrain your off the track thoroughbred with video tutorials. Working with a couple of my off the track thoroughbreds. So you can pop it in the comments if you want to find out more. You'll also find the link to that in many of my YouTube videos and in the featured section of my Facebook group. So I'd love to have you there. And look, I will leave it there, and I will see you next week for our weekly live Q&A. Bye.